Hey guys, it's Tim Gillette at Tim Gillette Show, and I'm back here with another episode today of our show, and I have another great special guest for you. Now, this person here, all right, is someone who I'm closely related to with Craig Duswalt. That's another nickel you owe me, Craig, for mentioning you through Craig Duswalt and his mastermind in California. Dr. Carol Soloway has been someone that I've connected to through that thing, as well as been able to connect with, you know what I mean? She's connected me with speaking engagements. I've connected her with people I know. Or I've reinforced relationships of people we both know together to say, hey, she's coming through town, you should speak. We're both speakers who travel. Right now, we're both sitting at home. So what better time to actually have a conversation online when we're both stuck at home and all we have is the computer to go talk to people. So anyway, the last speaking engagement I had where I left the house was for Dr. Carol's group in California. And literally, as I was getting there, all right, things were just starting to go to where they're going here with our current stay at home. And I made it home through 2 airports to get home right after that. And we haven't really talked one-on-one since that's happened to actually compare. But she was on her way to try to get home too, and I'm sure she'll talk about that story. So let me bring Dr. Carol Soloway on screen here and see what she's up to. Well, Dr. Carol Soloway, how are you?
I am excellent. And I do want to say that I was so fortunate to have had you as our last real live speaker because, the kudos were amazing. So thank you for that, first of all.
Well, that's it. Yeah, both you and I, and I mean, we, you know, as well as, you know what I mean, your partner, Dr. Barbara, in that, all right, we're in the business of, like, you know, helping people. So we both reach out and go, hey, what can we do to help your organization? You get it. You understand it. All right. And we're always writing that down and studying it. Okay, people want this from me. Let me go get it for them. You know what I mean? You understand that, you know, and so do I. And that's what we do. So thank you. It was an honor to be able to provide you with the information and stuff you needed and your group needed. So, yeah. But today we're actually sitting at home. Are you at home? You're not in the RV, right?
No, we made it home. Oh, we made it home the day the parks closed in California.
Oh, my word.
So lucky. No, I am in my house sitting with my husband's backyard. I call it my husband's backyard. And we were so fortunate to have made it because I was going across the country speaking about empowering women. And we just stopped. And I went virtual like within 2 days because I had a speaking gig for eWomen. And I just said, we can't do it. And we did it virtually. And it worked. So now we're virtual speakers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in a way, we're all virtual speakers. And I was telling Carol before we came on air, there's a conference going on here that I know normally that's virtual. And their featured guest this morning was Mark Cuban. So even Mark Cuban is a virtual speaker right now.
We're all on the same platform.
Yes. And it's you know, normally I have things to adapt to this because I normally do a lot of radio interviews when I'm at home and stuff like that. But now everybody's doing it. And, you know what I mean? It's a new world for us all. For me, it's the first time in 10 years that my world isn't silent in my house because my wife has to work from home as well. So, you know, I know you and your husband, you're not necessarily working as much. Your guys are kind of semi-retired, aren't you?
No, well, what do I say? This is the first time in my life that I'm not working.
Oh,
no,
wow.
I work as a qualified medical examiner and examine patients, then determine their percentage of disability. So my job, I'm a chiropractor and I am a state appointed qualified medical examiner. That's my real job. So and when we go across the country, I come back 1 week every 5 weeks and do the exams.
Oh, wow.
And then write the reports. So no, the novels and children's book, that's my hobby.
Wow.
I have a real job.
Yeah.
But now I'm not doing that. It stopped completely.
Yeah, I haven't had a real job, but in a way, this has been my real job because I treat this like a job. But anyway, It's interesting that this is, you know what I mean, it's different for all of us right now. But you had something, you had at least had a habit or a pattern that you followed on a regular basis, and now that got changed. Yeah,
Completely. Yes.
yeah. So tell us about when you were traveling. All right, tell us about how you went out to speak. All right, and what you were speaking about, because you have had different subjects, and even you are going a different direction now.
I'm always going in a different direction. I speak on I had been speaking and have been speaking on empowering women. In other words, what is the one key to enable you to succeed? I call it the one key to victory. And that, in my mind, is unshakable drive. You have to be so driven that nothing will get in your way. And so that's what I was taking to women and giving them that the guideline for having whatever they want. Who is it? Zig Ziglar. If you give enough people what they want, you'll get what you want.
Yeah.
And now I'm taking it to children, which I realized is really my sweet spot, because before this, I was an English teacher for years, and being able to teach children. So I've written a children's book, and our friend Les Brown wrote the foreword, which is amazing. And so now what I'm doing is promoting that children's book and to Girls Inc. Girls Inc. is recording me reading it, and just getting younger people motivated and inspired. And because reading, and by the way, hearing stories when you're younger sets you up for succeeding through every grade.
Yeah.
So that's my new motivation. My new desire is to start not only with women, but with children.
Okay.
So that's
when you were younger, Carol, were you into reading books and stories, or were you into like listening to stories on the radio?
The radio? Not that old.
No. In the 70s, I used to listen to a radio drama on Saturday mornings as a kid. I did. And that was the 70s. So yeah, it's still happening.
No, my children were born in the 70s. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was teaching before the 70s. So, no. This is amazing. My father went to 7th grade. There were no books in our house. Reading was not important.
Wow.
And it says, what did I read? The more books you have in your house, the more likely you are to read. And one child I know told me, my parents always buy me books and tell me to read, but I never see them read. So that's what's so important. And I realized after writing 2 novels that were bestsellers, not enough people read, but yet they want their children to. So that's how I got into writing the children's book.
But I mean, are you a reader now? I mean, are you out there? They're still diving into books yourself that are that may not be related to to your medical field, but like just other books that to learn or to entertain yourself.
I read only novels because I got it, because that's what holds my interest. What did I read once? Novels do more for us than nonfiction. Okay, your audience who loves nonfiction, sorry, but because they improve our imagination, they make us follow along more intently, so they improve our memory. And I read novels because that's what I had been writing up until about 6 months ago when I wrote the children's book with my granddaughter, my 5-year-old granddaughter. So so I was reading that. Now I'm reading a lot of children's books also.
Well, was it your granddaughter that inspired you to do the children's, or was it just, you know what I mean? You had a premonition to go a different direction in your books?
Well, part of it was that here's one of my novels. Okay.
Oh, yes, show them up.
Okay. Well, this is what I want to show you. This girl on the cover is one of our granddaughters. Okay. So my other granddaughter said, "Wow, how'd she get on the cover?" And I said, "Would you like to be on the cover of a book?" And she said, "Sure." I said, "Well, we got to write one." And so we wrote The Surprise Circus, which does have a foreword by Les Brown. And she, sure enough, is on the back of the book. And she got her glasses, got her dress, and decided that was her author profile. How she knew that, I don't know. But I have no idea.
Yeah.
But we wrote a story. We were sitting right there, and we started talking about the circus. And we talked about all the circus characters. And then her imagination took flight, and the book was born, and it became an international bestseller last week.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's just going.
Even with all the crap we're going through, you still became a bestseller. I love it. Yeah.
Well, because it does take it's what do I say, imaginative and inspirational, because the little girl learns when she believes in herself, which is what we need so much. When she believes in herself, then anything can happen, even something like a circus.
Yeah.
And, nowadays with all the stars reading children's books, this is the time to motivate and to give children something positive.
Well, I want to go back into something you mentioned there, Carol, because you know what I mean. You talk about reading the storyline, or what did you call it? What did you say? The fiction books, are inspirational. Do you think more of these non-fictional, and in our space we know a lot of the self-help people, stuff like that? Do you think they should add more storyline to what they're doing to help teach?
Stories are throughout history, throughout my teaching as an English teacher, and also when I speak, and I know you do it too. Stories are how we relate, how we connect, how we remember, and also how we learn. I mean, you can tell us 20 facts, but stories are what make us learn. And it's not only as adults. I mean, this was amazing, showing the power of story. Children were put in a room and they were told, "Don't peek." You know what happens. Don't peek at these presents. And then they took them out and put them in different groups. One was read The Boy Who Cried Wolf, one was read Pinocchio, and one was read the story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree.
Yeah.
Then in the control group was read The Tortoise and the Hare. Okay, so we've got 4 reading groups. They bring them back in to the room and say, "Did you peek?" And you know what? 100% of the ones that heard the George Washington story, where he said, "I cannot tell a lie," confessed that they peeked. And the tortoise and the hare ones, they, no, I didn't peek, I didn't look. And the others, Pinocchio was a little too far-fetched. So the power of learning from stories, that study I thought was just said it all for children.
Yeah.
But for adults too, it even increases our it increases our endorphins, it increases our oxytocin, our bonding. I mean, stories really, they've done studies where stories do do things physiologically to us. I mean, the power of stories. One guy, I can't remember his name, Rob Penn, I think his name is. He sold items. He bought items on eBay for $180. And then he had writers put a story on those items, and he sold them for $8,000 totally. The stories added the value to these items. I mean, stories are what we want, what we crave since cave days.
It's almost like I think it's an old song about the old violin. You know what I mean? And people, they like, who wants to buy this violin? Nobody wants it. Well, then the master of it comes up and shows the artwork behind it and plays it. All right. And now the bids are like phenomenal. Everybody wants it and they all want to pay top dollar for it. Yeah. I see that now. That makes sense with what you said on that story there with the gentleman doing that on eBay. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's stories from, in the cave. What did I read? This is amazing. In the cave, when the cavemen were there, they even had drawings in the caves on divorce and setting up and dividing the property. Cave drawings have been, uncovered throughout history with real stories behind them. I mean, that's in our DNA.
Wow.
Stories.
I know. And it's funny because some people, I feel that, they want the story on the, like the movies, based on the movies we watch. Some want to watch the comedy, some want to watch the drama. Do you find that every form of content that you consume, all right, is based on a certain type of story you like, or do you watch different ones?
Well, first of all, I don't watch television. I do watch some news, but I don't watch TV because as my day job, what do I call it? My core job or the job that makes money. I have to read. One weekend, I had to read 30,000 pages of medical records. Now that's 30,000. Now that's way more than 30 novels, almost 300 novels. And that was what was given to me on this one patient. Usually it's about, let's say 5,000 pages, 1,000 pages, but I have to read everything in the patient's medical history and sometimes going back to childhood. So I'm so inundated with reading nonfiction that I want the novel to escape. I want to be able to very often guess who done it and kind of figure out, like the last one I read, I was able to figure out on page 270, who the person is who killed the woman. So I read, but I want to read more literary novels, meaning novels that are also very well written and, no grammatical errors and with twists and turns that fit in perfectly.
So it's interesting that you mentioned something there that I want to get back to with authors, because you're a writer, but you read. But you actually talk about the grammatical errors. Now, I've heard this, and this is how I do. But in your writing, all right, do you do the writing and the editing at the same time, or do you do the writing and then edit it later?
This is a habit I'd love to get out of. I have to write in longhand first.
Okay.
Now and by the way, my ideas usually come in the shower in the car. It's the best. I mean, because you're kind of you're on more I shouldn't say this while I'm driving, you'll stay away from me on the freeway, but you're more on automatic. So my ideas come then, and I write, then I type it, then I proof it, give it to my husband to proof because he was a journalism major and a publisher. So I give it to him to proof it, and then I take it back and rewrite it.
Yeah.
So that's the process, and then give it to a professional editor. That is critical because we can't catch it. We're in it. We just can't.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say in that because I've always heard, I mean, and I had to get into that in the beginning, was just write it, just get the thought out, all right, and we edit it later. And they said never confuse the writing process with the editing process. They're two different processes. And
without
so
a
many
doubt,
writers try to do it all at once.
It's never going to work. And now because we do have a screenwriter who's an agent picked up my novel Gracie's Gone and is working to get it in shape for Hallmark. That's amazing. So I'm now reading the screenplay of my novel, and it's amazing the different skill set that involves. It's just so different, and I'm enjoying that process, but I don't think I'd ever read screenplays. I mean, I am now, but and also, you're talking about, I don't know how interesting this is to other people, but an English teacher, the new genre, or the new literary genre of writing does character hopping and head hopping, I call it.
Yeah.
And I have to keep a cheat sheet whenever I read. Matter of fact, I gave my husband the book I just finished. I can't even remember the name of it. And I gave him the cheat sheet with it because, I said, this is going to help you.
You're going to need this.
You're going to need this.
Yeah.
And, I didn't write like that. Yeah, I write in one character's head and keep that character going throughout the book. But the new genre and the new writing style, and you'll see it in every, most books can go from, head hopping or character hopping, and that keeps us more attuned to the plot because you're not going necessarily in sequence. But I think it's cheating. We could never do that when we started writing. We had to stay in the character and get the story told through that character. So anyway, that's what I'm noticing in today's
so
fiction.
Speaking of storytelling, all right, I know there's a gentleman who lives out in your area. Years ago I met him and connected with him, was James Key. Do you know James?
No.
Yeah. He taught me how to write a story. The night of the 2016 elections, we were sitting in a hotel at LAX airport. And I'm there for a conference during the election. So we're watching the results in the bar. And, I found a situation and I used it because of the fact that, I'm trying to teach something on my website, and I tried to write it in a story, and James totally come back and rewrote it. He says, you're writing it, all right, trying to tell a story. He said, you got to write it like you're in it. And I'm like, whoa. And when we rewrote it, that like I was from the experience. So the reader was in me listening, and it was phenomenal. James just was a great person at teaching me that in the storyline, because, you talk about writing in a character and jumping from character to character versus being in one. That made a whole difference in my writing and teaching style of my stories, is learning that one thing. So let me ask you, I
want to go back. I want to go back to one thing, because one thing we talk about story.
Yeah.
I've studied with Les Brown's son how to speak and speaking, and he told me this: every story has to have a point.
Yeah.
And every point has to have a story. And that's something that for your speakers, I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I got added ons to that I've learned too, but you know what I mean? But yeah, I was going to ask you, all right, in that, and I kind of lost where I was going to go with that anyway, but it's okay.
Sorry.
I'll come back to it. Don't worry. Hey, we've got time. We've got a whole show here to figure back out what I was going to ask. But that's my way of learning things is, you know what I mean? I find out, and people ask me all the time, how do you interview? This is how I interview, by the way, guys, is we go down a story and it reminds me of something and it makes me put a question down. Sometimes I write it down to remind myself and sometimes I don't. But my next question is always based on what Carol was just telling me.
And then I interrupted you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, it's okay. But let me go on to the other thing that I thought of when you said that was, you know what I mean, from Les Brown Jr. was I learned from, I don't know if you know Maurice Domino. Maurice Domino taught me, he said, Tim, everything you do in speaking is you got to tell a story, give a point, and give a call to action. Every point, that's what it does. He says, here's why you do that. He says, if you've got it outlined your entire speech that way, and you're cut down on time, you can always cut out or brief the story to share the point, but you still have the call to action in there. He says, you know what stories you can take in or out. And I'm like, wow. That was a huge thing for me from Maurice Domino. But in your case here, all right, you're writing these stories, you're putting them out like this in book format, and then you go to the stage to share, to get people to actually buy your books, all right, or to take the relationship to the next level. Right. Do you actually do storytelling sessions with your book, or do you give them a little bit of the story to make them want to find the end of the story and buy the book?
Okay, I do. When I speak, I do not have, it does not have anything to do with my books.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Until now.
Yeah.
When I speak, I tell my part of my story, but it's really what's in it for them, how they can relate to certain things in my story. I went from a $10,000 student loan to build a seven-figure chiropractic practice. And along the way, there were trials and more trials and more trials. But so I tell them stories that will get them to realize that when we believe in ourselves and when we, have this unshakable drive, that we can really do anything. I mean, anything is possible. I was, after a marriage and losing custody of my children, I was like done. There was no place to go but downhill. And then I just, what did I say? You can be a victim of your history or the victor of a new story. And that's what I tried to do, to instill that they can be a victor of any story they make up.
Yeah.
As long as they believe in it.
Yeah. And sometimes, we watch a story in a movie, and then we hear about the real story, and we hear sometimes about how it didn't really happen that way. There's a difference. But the stories are created in the movie because it's based on a pattern, all right, to help the movie along. In your stories, all right, so you're telling a story from stage or something like that. Do you make the pattern of the story work so that embellishing gets people to go out of the mental or out of the logical and into the imagination? Do you, I hate to say the word embellish because I really don't like that word, but do you fix the story to help get people out of the logical and into the creative?
Well, I'm gonna quickly tell you a story. Okay, we'll try. Okay, marriage is really easy. All you have to do is cook like Julia Childs, have the patience of Mother Teresa with your children, and be a sex goddess at night. That's easy. Now that would be embellishing, wouldn't you say?
Oh.
So showing how difficult what would I say? I was good until I realized I wasn't that good. So getting people to relate to your story, there has to be something that's going to be universal right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what did what was his name? Bo Eason say, the more specific, the more universal, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
personal, the more universal. So, telling my story is not good enough unless it's their story also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's but as far as the dramatic, this book, I'm going to go back to this because I'm working on the well, I'm not working, a
Yeah.
screenwriter is working on it. And she started in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, on page 100, because that was where the drama is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we tell our stories, we have to start where the drama is. Because
Mm.
no one wants to hear, I got up, I ate breakfast, I brushed my teeth.
Yeah. That's not the part that's not going to hook them into wanting to listen to the whole thing. Yeah. You're right.
No. So, so I don't tell them although one of my novels, my first one, is what is it?
Oh,
My
okay.
first novel is. I'm not going to say autobiographical. Sex happens. It's fiction, of course.
Yeah.
No, and so I tell a bit of my life, and there are elements of all of us in everything we, I think it was Hemingway. No, I can't remember who. Well, I'll think of it. Said that the greatest that autobiography is the greatest form of no fiction is the greatest form of autobiography.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Hemingway or I'll think of who it was.
Hmm. Hmm.
But so yeah, fiction. We're all putting, reality is there, but it's our interpretation of reality.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah, that's it. It's the interpretation of the reality, but it serves a purpose when you interpret your reality to get people to understand it. I think, and I think that's where I was going with that is, what I mean, sometimes I've got to interpret it so that the listener will get it. You know what I mean? In my head, there may be a million other things going on in my head, but when I try to explain them to the listener, they're like, what? I got to explain it in a way that they're going to get it, and it's going to adapt to them to make it. They're going to put themselves in it and go, oh, that's how I can fix this. Yeah.
actually that's what I did in the Surprise Circus, the children's book. The little boy, who by the way happens to be Les Brown's grandson, who I've met, tells the little girl, "You've got to be hungry," like Les Brown would say.
Yeah.
And she says,
That's
"Well,
what do. Yeah.
well, we can serve popcorn at the circus," because that in her mind is what will solve the problem of hunger. And he says, "No, no, no. Being hungry means you got to want something so badly that you're going to work for it day and night."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it was like, how can I get a message of a hard concept to children?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was by breaking it down to popcorn, to working. So, and that's what we do in life all the time anyway. We have to get it to the other person so the other person understands.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's why my brand's called Simple Easy Marketing. I think it's like you got to make it so a third grader can understand it and everybody gets it. Yeah.
You have to write, and you can't write beyond a seventh grader either.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's part of why my brand is the way it is, because I understood that, and I understood that because I didn't understand it if it was past that level. All right, the third grade to the seventh grade level. Once it got past that, and I realized in school, sixth grade, seventh grade is where school got hard for me. You know what I mean?
That was the grade I taught, seventh grade English.
Yep. And it got very hard for me to where my sixth grade teacher, actually, Carol, she spent, I want to say, hours of personal tutoring with me to get me to pass sixth grade. You know what I mean? And that's that's my difficulty. Well, now if I learn to tell stories based on, I know that, you know what I mean? I know where my understanding was, and I can relate to the people that way. you and I mean, in your case there, you're doing it with the kids now in the line of kids books, right? Well, let me ask that. Are you going to go into other kids books?
My team, the team that I've kind of gotten together, is my now 6-year-old granddaughter. You know, she's much more mature now. My 6-year-old granddaughter, my 15-year-old illustrator, and me, and we work so well together. I put something in my head, and then the 15-year-old puts it on paper.
Okay, cool.
And my 6-year-old granddaughter, we already have the second one going, and we're gonna take off because it's really fun.
Yeah.
Of everything I've done in my life, this is the greatest achievement.
Cool. So,
I mean, it's wonderful.
Well, cool. Well, Carol, I want to make sure that everyone can find you and get a hold of you who's on the show today or listen to the show on the audio version. What is a website or place on the internet that they can actually get a hold of you and find you?
They can get a hold of me at carolsoloway.com, and my books are on Amazon. My The Surprise Circus is on Amazon and in Barnes and Nobles.
So cool. All right, and show the books up. Put the books up there.
Okay,
everybody can see it.
The Surprise Circus. Whoops.
There we go.
There we are. The Surprise Circus. And look at the beautiful illustration.
Hold on, I'm going to bring you up on full screen so they can see that.
Oh, yeah, she just did an amazing job, and that's my co-author.
Cool.
And the illustrations throughout are just as magnificent on every website. That's not as exciting on every single page.
Wow, that is so cool. So
we're excited.
Cool. So, again, that website, carolsoloway.com. So, Carol, first of all, I mean, thank you for being on the show today. It's just been so great to have you on my show. And as I close up, I don't know if you were aware of this, Carol, but like I play the game with my guests. You hear about my game?
What? Tell me your game.
I have this list of a couple things that are this or that questions that I want to ask you because my listeners want to know.
Okay, go for it.
You ready?
Oh yeah, my husband quit Scrabble last night, so I'm done with that one. Let's go.
All right, I've got about 8 or 9 questions here. There's one choice or another. I give you the choices. You pick one. I want to start off because I like to find out who the geeks are who listen, who's a geek and who's not that listens to my podcast. And that is, I ask Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Okay. Is it, just because you've seen it or, were you into the shows? Either one of them?
Neither one.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't think, I was wondering, I mean, that's probably got to find out who the ones are that like him and who don't. So this next one may be something that you're into that really, let's face it, I'm not. And that is heels. Do you wear heels or boots?
Heels. High heels. My husband's 6'2", high heels.
Yeah.
And one of my talks is how to succeed in high heels.
Ah, cool. So this next one here may be something that you do or don't do, but go to the movies. Do you get popcorn or candy?
Neither, but popcorn.
You'll take the popcorn, yeah. I mean, come on. It's so good. Popcorn, yeah. How about when you go out to get a fast food or anytime? We don't have to make fast food. This can be good food. Would you get a taco or a hamburger?
Hamburger.
I would gladly pay you on Tuesday for a hamburger today. That was my favorite too. So while you're riding in your wonderful RV, are you guys listening to podcasts or are you listening to music?
My husband talks, but I'll say music.
He's singing to you, Carol.
He's talking. It's interesting, actually.
Cool. If you're going to have a drink, are you going to have a beer or a wine? Glass of wine? Wine. And you are red wine, white wine?
Red only.
Red only? Red only. Yeah, yeah. How about the beach or the mountains?
Beach.
Beach, yeah. Is that because you live close to it?
That's because I find that the beach is so. When I first started my practice and I was so tense, are we going to have a patient?
Mhm.
I would actually go to the beach with an hour break.
Okay, so yeah.
Just, it did it.
Yeah. So like, for me, like I have my breaks before this pandemic is I used to go to Starbucks twice a day and literally not because I needed another cup of coffee, but it was like that was my space out. I want to call it meditation space out time. Just 10 minutes to go. You know what I mean? And now my wife and I take a walk, because of this pandemic, we're limited. We can't do certain things. But yeah, that's that beach. I can see how that would be your motivation time to actually clear and get ready for the next phase of your day. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it really helped.
I wish we had a beach close to do that, but we don't. We're in Texas.
I know.
So this next one here can create wars. All right. Many people fight over this one, and that is the toilet paper. Does it belong over or under on that roll?
Now it belongs any place you can find it. Any place. What did somebody say? I used to spin it like a roulette wheel, and now I do it like a crank that needs to be oiled.
Yeah.
So over, definitely.
Over. Okay. Yeah. And the last one here, it's because your husband might be listening and he might wants to know what he needs to go to the store and buy, and that is boxers or briefs.
Boxers. They're healthier.
See, my game's not that hard.
No, I didn't even have to study.
Dr. Carol, it has been fun having you on the show today. One more time, tell them your website so they can come find you, both on the audio and the video. Sure.
It's carolsoloway.com, and my new book is The Surprise Circus.
So The Surprise Circus. The Surprise Circus. And go to carolsoloway.com. Thank you, Dr. Carol, for being on our show today. We've enjoyed having you as our guest. And folks, you guys listening, go check out Carol Soloway at her website. Check out her new book, all right? I know from a fact that Carol's a very skilled writer because I've known her for years, and she really puts you into the story as we've explained today. So go check her out over there, all right? And do me a favor, go subscribe to her information, get on her email list, and get updates, as well as subscribe to our show, all right? So you can catch our next one. We're on iTunes, we're on Anchor FM, and we're on YouTube. I'm Tim Gillette with the Tim Gillette Show. Guys, we will see you next time with another great guest. Thanks again, Carol.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.